You're looking at the Palmetto State Armory Gen 3 something or other. It has a really, really long name, and I'm going to put a link in the description below. It's going to take you to a web page that has the rifle and all the various parts, and it'll take you on a direct link to this particular rifle so you get the correct one. But essentially, this is an AR10, and it's a very good one. This is one that my buddies and I went out to Redcastle and we tested this in prone shooting with just M80 ball ammo from 200 meters out to 500 meters. And we came away impressed. This is just a monster of a little rifle. It's lightweight. It looks like it's kind of set up for close quarters kind of work, maybe for hunting, maybe for some kind of mixed defense. But what this is, it's more than the sum of its parts, and it's way more than the sum of its price tag. So let's go through all of it. Now, before we start getting into the individual parts and what makes this what makes it tick, I really want to talk about the shooting experience. The three of us went out, and I was the first one to shoot. I wanted to see if I could just walk from a steel silhouette target at 200 meters. It's just a kind of a smaller chicken size. If we could walk that chicken out to the 300-meter pig, to the 400-yard turkey, out to the 500-meter ram out there, and just pop, pop, pop. And to do it without touching the scope, without doing anything, just as quickly as possible, go from one target to the next. And this rifle did it easily. Part of that's going to be the scope, and we'll chat about that. But yeah, if you want to see the whole video, I'll put a link to it up here. This rifle has all the precision that I needed to not only hit those targets quickly in that succession, but it actually put those bullets just right where I wanted them, right in the center, right in the boiler room, whatever kind of animal I was shooting at. This was not just winging these targets, it was absolutely nailing them. And that's not something that I necessarily expected from a lightweight little AR10 carbine like this one. It's 8 pounds, which is light for an AR10. It's kind of set up for just offhand work, it seems like, but no, this can do a whole lot more than that. And that's a real testament, not just to the quality of the parts in here, but how they all come together. Now, the real center of this is going to be this 18-inch barrel. This is a stainless, kind of lighter profile barrel. You can probably see it under there. It is rather light out on the front end, and then it's also shaved down behind the gas block. That gas block is in the mid-length position, and it's adjustable. So you can go from totally closed off so that it's not running the bolt at all. That's kind of cool if you're doing a subsonic and you want to keep things really, really quiet. Or if you want to open this up for some of your heavier ammo, you just click it into the first position. This has 3 different positions, and in that first one you're going to get lower gas. It's going to be fine. It ran our M80 ball, which is 7.62 by 51. It'll be able to run your 308s really well on that position. And then as you start to open it up just a little bit more, you're going to be able to hopefully get into subsonic territory. Now, this rifle, I actually did test some subsonics in it. I had some big old 208 grain hand-loaded 308 subsonic ammo, and I was kind of curious. With an 18-inch barrel, with a 1 in 10 twist that this has, would it be able to stabilize a bullet that's that large, it's that long? And this was a Hornady AMAX, so it's kind of a VLD bullet. It's really long, and yeah, it actually stabilized it. Not just marginally, but really well. I was able to hit some of the chicken targets at 200 meters offhand, and I wasn't even really trying that hard. I just wanted to see if I could make the shot. I wanted to hear it mostly. I wasn't so much aiming at the target, I just kind of held over it some, and then tink, it hit it with the 2 shots that I put in that direction. So yeah, it can stabilize some big bullets, and especially when you get into your supersonics, this barrel is going to work well for your 175s, like if you want to run M118 ammo, or if you want to get into some of your bigger hunting ammo, like 175s, 180s, possibly up past the 200s, I think it's going to run just fine, and that actually shocked me. The chamber that you have back at this end can run 308 or 7.62 by 51. It doesn't care. It's going to be able to handle your higher pressure ammo or your lower. And if you start running into those gas issues, then you can just adjust the block, no problem. Out on this end of the barrel, you'll see that I have a brake. This is actually my attachment for my suppressor. That's not what came on it. It actually came with this little bird cage. Basic, works okay. If you're gonna be doing offhand shooting, this is probably actually a pretty good way to go. But if you want to tame recoil, especially for when you're shooting prone, you can think about a muzzle brake maybe in the future. But let's move back a little bit. Surrounding the barrel is a free float handguard. This is all 7075 aluminum. It doesn't have much flex to it. Feels good, ran the bipod just fine, and you can see that it's M-LOK all the way around with huge cutouts to reduce the weight. It even has M-LOK across the top and all kinds of lightning cuts included in there. And it has Picatinny at the back and at the front. So if you want to run a bipod like this weirdo, or if you want to do iron sights, you can pop those out there. If you have strange attachments for your optics, you can put them back in here. And of course you can do all your M-LOK attachments. But this actually has some pretty cool features. I'm gonna loosen up the bipod and take it off. But they included in this handguard QD attachments for your slings. So you can pop that in, and this is the non-rotating kind. It's on both sides, left and right. And then back here as well, same thing. So if you wanna run, you know, some kind of closer sling so that it just kind of hugs the body, you can do that. If you want to use one for shooting stability, you can run it all the way out to the front. And then since this has a Magpul MOE stock on the back, get some sockets at the back as well. Pretty cool. Like I mentioned, this is a free float handguard. It has a smooth barrel nut under there, and the way that this is leveled is it actually has some extra attachments that kind of go around the sides of the receiver. And it has a screw at the top so that you can nail down exact level. That way, if you are running iron sights where things might be a little different out here, you should be able to take the handguard off, put it back on, and you should still have your zero. I like that a lot. Now, as we're moving further back, we're looking at the receiver. This is just kind of bog standard. It's nothing special about it. It's a forged receiver. Looks great, feels great. And the bolt on the inside and the BCG, just standard as well. Nothing weird about them, no dual ejectors or anything. It has one and it works fine. I had 0 failures to feed, fire, extract, eject, any of that stuff, except when it came to subsonics. I told you that this has different positions for gas at the gas block. It doesn't have quite enough gas for at least the subsonics that I made. Maybe there's some ammunition that'll work, but this one couldn't quite handle it. So it wouldn't actually move the bolt at all. I had to manually eject these things. Not a big issue. There are plenty of these that have the same sort of thing. But again, if you run into some ammo that maybe has higher pressure going back through the gas block, maybe it would work for you. In my case, it didn't. This is 308 and 7.62 in its chamber, like I mentioned, so you can run hot, you can run some of the lower pressure stuff. You can just kind of run anything through it, and it should do really well. Let's take a look at the controls that we have. This has a standard charging latch. It's small. It's not particularly easy to use when you're in the prone, and so for that reason, at some point I'll probably switch this over to one of the large tactical latches so that I can work around the scope. I mean, it's fine, it works great, but I'd like a little bit more purchase and for it to be ambidextrous so that I can, again, run it around a scope really easily. The mag catch, standard. The bolt catch, standard, although this one is so positive that I feel like if the bolt were locked back, you could drop it out of a plane and it wouldn't undo when it hit the ground. I mean, you really have to smack this thing in order to get the bolt to go home. This isn't one that you just lightly press and it runs forward. Heck no, this one takes a pretty good hit. The safety selector is also completely standard, 90 degrees, easy to use, whatever. As we get into the trigger, this is actually a 2-stage trigger, but this is one where I'm also going to recommend that maybe at some point you would want to upgrade it. It worked fine for us. I liked it just fine, but it's not quite as crisp as what I normally like. This is a 2-stage, so you have that initial take up, and instead of hitting a shelf like you normally do, where you just apply pressure and then it snaps, this one has creep. It's pretty smooth creep, but you never know quite when it's going to fire. Yeah, it's a smooth trigger. It's not a crisp one. I prefer crisp, and at some point you may want to drop in something that's more like the Trigger Tech Diamond AR10 trigger that I just tested recently. I'll put a link to that review here. That would be just a phenomenal choice for this. But you can get into like a Geisley SSA or something, or maybe one of their 2-stage, and that'll get you something that's a bit more precise for that precision work. Moving down below, this is an A2 style grip. It is thin, it's rubberized, and it doesn't have the finger groove, as you can see. It's fine when you're offhand, but for me, since I have a larger hand, and since I do a lot of prone work, I'm gonna want something more like the Magpul MOE or the CMMG Zeroed grip that has more of a vertical sort of shape to it, and it has more of a palm swell, so it fills my hand. That's kind of a big deal to me, so at some point I'll probably switch that over. Moving back, we have an MOE Buttstock, and this is really nice. It feels really comfortable on the face. I always felt like when I got on the rifle, I was just looking straight through the scope. That's exactly how I want it to work. The only thing that I would change on this is I would opt for the $20 extra butt pad that you can get on this. It gets you a little extra length of pull, and it gets you a little bit of extra softness to protect that collarbone when you're shooting in the prone. All three of us, and we are all kind of different shapes and sizes, all of us found this to be relatively uncomfortable in the recoil department because it is a lightweight rifle and it's shooting .308. We found it to be a little uncomfortable in the prone. We started to get just a little bit bruised around the collarbone area. So yeah, that's one thing that we all mentioned. We would swap that over. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the rifle straight out of the box is going to run great for you, and it's going to be comfortable, it's going to be competent. I think those are the only things that I would change incrementally over time. I have no grand desire to fix anything right now, but I would do, a muzzle brake. You can see I've already done that. I would do the charging latch, the trigger, and then that butt pad on the back. But really, that's it. This rifle is just happy. It's ready to run. It's ready to make things happen. And I'm really looking forward to doing some hunts with this. Let's talk about some of the goodies that come in the box. You do get this bag that has a manual. It has a card with the description of how the gas block works. It has the usual bolt lock that you can thread through there for safety. And it comes with this gigantic Allen key that you can use to run the adjustable gas block. Pretty cool they threw that in. I don't know where I'm gonna store it. Maybe I can just tape it to the side, but there it is. It's gigantic. It also comes with a 20-round PMag. If you want to shoot this in the prone, especially if there's a bunch of crud around, like maybe rocks or whatever, maybe one of these 10-rounders would be a better choice. But one of the cool things about the bipod that you see here is that this gets tall enough that you can run some big mags underneath it. So you don't have to just do the 10s, you can use the 20 that came with it. And with that in mind, let's talk about the configuration that I have. Again, if you go to that link down in the description, you're gonna see all the parts that I chose and some of my notes on it. I think that this is squared away just great for a whole bunch of different purposes. I could use this as forward defense in a defensive homeland kind of situation. I could use this on a hog hunt, either at longer distance or at close distance. And yeah, I think that the way that this works would be just great. We'll start at the front. This is the UTG overbore bipod that attaches by Picatinny to the top of your rail, and the whole rifle sits under it. So if I loosen this up, loosen the cant, I can just put a finger under here and you can see that the rifle doesn't want to fall over. If anything, it wants to come level. It wants to fix its own cant. And I can tighten that down, cant is good, and now I can pan back and forth for moving targets. It's awesome. Like I said, this gets very tall. You can extend the legs, and you can do two different positions. This is the 90 degree, and you can do the 45 or the all the way forward as well when you want to stow it. And as far as stowing goes, you saw me take the bipod off. This is actually a quick detach. So if you had been shooting at some longer distance hogs, like in my case, if I were shooting at some hogs and I wanted to, go offhand for getting up close and personal with them, I could just pop this off, throw it in a backpack, and now I have a lightweight carbine without the bipod attached. Love that. Moving back, we have the fabulous Falcon S10i LPVO. This is a 1:10 by 24 millimeter scope with a red dot when you're up close, like on 1x. It's illuminated and it's daylight bright, and then you can crank this up to 10x or whatever, and this has a second focal plane Christmas tree reticle, and that's how I was making those shots. I never touched the turrets when I was shooting this. I just used the reticle. And I could use the reticle out to distances, I think as far as about 1,000 yards with this rifle, no kidding. If I wanted to, I could dial for this shot instead, and in typical Falcon fashion, it's gonna nail down that position. It's just gonna work every time. This has locking turrets, like you can see, and at 19 ounces, 18 and a half ounces, it's lightweight, and it's actually relatively inexpensive, 400 bucks for all that you see through here. And yeah, I'm just really happy to have this as part of the solution. This is exactly how I would configure this for especially a dangerous hunt. This is the $55 Weaver thumb nut 30 millimeter mount, and I recommend these as well. They're awesome. Nothing to say about them except that they're simple, they work, and they come back to zero every time. I can take the scope off, put it to the side, put a different scope on, like a red dot or iron sights or whatever, put this back on, and it's just gonna come right back to zero. Tested many times in my own personal tests. All right, so what is the purpose of something like this? For myself, I see this, again, as that forward defense, kind of longer defense rifle. If I needed to defend the homeland, if I needed to deal with some real threats at longer distances, this is going to get on target much more easily, both in terms of drop and of windage, and it's going to provide more energy when it arrives. And this applies to dangerous animals or just animals in general as well. I can precisely get on target with hogs, deer, coyotes at a variety of distances, especially here on Oklahoma ranches where the distances may be, it's just going to be varied. A coyote might walk up on you. You may find that you're face to face with a hog. You may find that the animal that you're after is a little bit farther away than you wanted and you're not going to be able to sneak up. In this case, the way that this is configured, I can take the shot pretty much no matter what it is. So guys, if that sounds appealing to you, you really need to take a look at this. Again, links are down below. Thanks for watching, and if any of you have this, like say you pick one up later and you want to be able to let me know, if it works, how good it is for you, if it's been precise for you, yeah, please let us all know down in the comments below. I'll see you all around.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, the Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the destructive arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks so much for your patronage.